Ascension Day or Easter, when the procession came through the town from the church, in this case the Catholic Church, all the houses would be decorated. His house was decorated better than anybody's. Because his house, the Jewish businessman who lived in the house I'm talking about, his house was decorated. He gave the help the time and the whatever to do it, and he took pride in the fact that his house was the best decorated on Ascension Thursday.
So is that your place?
I don't think, no, it must have been that house back there. There was a fountain. But I'm sure they took away, I'm sure they've removed most of the fountains if they interfered with traffic or something.
War das Bahnhof oder mal was?
This is where we bought the Geldbeutel to take Oma's money to Nuremberg in cash.
Where did you buy the book?
In this store here, yeah. And the bank was right on the corner.
We were in there with
Sparkasse,
Lydia,
with Lydia.
and the guy and the local director of the bank or whatever. And he asked for my birth date, and I told him. And he said, oh, that's my wife's birthday too.
Kristen, what's your
And then I said, oh, then we both owe something to Immanuel Kant because he was born on that day.
Oh, here's Lauren Pippich.
One of these shops, yes. The original Pivish, the one that my father knew, who was presumably born about the turn of the last century, shut up, kid, was a watchmaker, and he had his shop here. And he sang in the church choir with my father, both spaces. Pivish did not hear too well. This didn't keep him from singing, however, but it imposed certain restrictions. Because when they would be singing something very, very pianissimo, very soft, he leaned over to my father once, who was intensely watching the director, and said, "Singen wir noch?" Which means we still singing.
Are we still singing?
And I mentioned that to Uli Maya, my cousin, when he was in New York and we were at the Metropolitan Opera. I told him that during one of those quiet things, and he laughed right out. I just said, maybe I had told him the story already, and I said during this time, I just said, singing, you know.
Should we go to the corner and then?
Oh, yeah. Let's see if the Sparkasse is still here. I bought those here once, but I don't remember what.
Not only may into you, I don't think you can. But we're not going to test it. So is this is kind of where the output energy is?
I guess so, yeah. This used to be the only thing beyond here is the train station.
You can get a little vista, so let's go to this corner.
Yeah. We can even walk back through that little alley over there next to the railroad track.
Okay, the Sparkasse is still here.
Yep.
Yeah, but it's called Volksbank. Oh, it's a Sparkasse.
That's a different one. Sparkasse is on the right. That was Oma's bank. Oma's bank. Should we continue walking towards that school opposite the railroad station? Do you remember that?
Well,
place
my school?
where you went to school? Yeah.
Well, that's been torn down and there's a parking garage there.
Uh-huh.
But the Real Gymnasium
Right.
building is still
That's
there.
still there.
And
we
that little narrow track railroad that went back into the Mudau and those places, every morning on that train would be kids from those towns who were coming to the gymnasium. And then some of them would go on to Heidelberg if they were already going to university.
And this is how we used to arrive in Mosbach, or the kids would arrive in Mosbach by train from Frankfurt. They flew there to visit their grandmother, all alone, in turn. That's Sonnenhalde up there. Those two modern houses that you see are, in fact, that might even be Uma's house that was between those two.
Yeah, that could be.
That's the Sonnenhalde where she lived before she went to the old age home.
But she remembered when she was living there that you were visiting there once, and you went down to go home, you went down the stairs, you walked down the road, train station, and she said, and he was quite very independent. He must have been about 12 years old at the time, and with his little rucksack over his shoulder, and he just went off very self-confident. But
to then go across to America, you mean?
Yes.
yeah, you go home.
And I did that alone?
Yeah.
How old was I?
Maybe 15 or 16.
I think you were younger.
So what's across the street?
Where my Oma lived after she returned to Mosbach in her later years. She lived for a time in the Sonnenhalde, which is that street that runs up the side of that hill,
Those houses.
where you see those hills, the last row of houses in the distance. And she lived, I'm not sure which one of them, but she lived in one of those. It was an apartment.
And in one of those buildings, we, having driven up there, the last time we were here probably with Elizabeth, we had driven up that road and asked directions of a man, and I said, gee, he looks familiar, and he looked at me and said, you look familiar. And we talked for a while, and I could tell from his chocolate gray, tight curly hair that he had to be some relative of his Sepsis who was, and he was his brother, or his nephew, I think. Sepsis was in America. His close friend was a Stoller Hermann, and I told this man about all those people.
He knew everything. I think he was a younger brother.
He might have been a younger brother. No, he said something about his uncle Seppel.
Really?
I don't know.
But he knew the whole story.
Because
of
don't forget, he
everyone.
was maybe 50 or 60 at that time, and his Seppel was long dead.
And he's saying all the names in reverse. He's saying last name and then first name. Was that
That's
everybody
how
do that?
everybody in Mosbach did that.
Yeah.
Is it a Mosbach thing,
Everybody
or
in
is
the
it
country.
country?
You were referred
So you're Müller Klaus?
No, Müller's Klaus.
Müller's
I am
Klaus.
The Klaus of the Müller.
Yeah, the Muller's Klaus.
The Müller's Klaus. S apostrophe.
Nicholas. You have to be aware of everybody else around you.
So it's probably not
Not
interesting
much
enough
fun
to
to
look
learn
at.
further, no.
The train station is just
And
over
where
there.
Hartman's had their store, that's not interesting.
That's too far away.
Yeah.
We have to drive there. No,
It's so ugly
no,
there.
so ugly. Let's go back.
Let's go back
Go
into
into
town.
the church if we can.
We'll check